Mike?
Sue?
Mike?
Sue?
Mike, where are you?
Ah! The horror! Hi, everybody. My name is Michael O'Rourke.
Hey, everyone. My name is Sue Slachter.
And this is the very first episode of The Horror.
The horror!
The horror! And in this episode, we'll be reviewing the original Child's Play from 1988.
I am a really, really big fan of this movie, as is evidenced by my fabulous t-shirt that we've got going here. So just in case you've never seen this film before, let me give you a rundown of what it's about. Essentially, we've got a single mother who gives her young child a good guy doll for his birthday. Lucky kid, right? Except this doll happens to be possessed by the serial killer known as Charles Lee Ray, aka Chucky. And Chucky used the power of voodoo to put his soul into this doll so that he could avoid getting killed by the cops. We find out that the voodoo curse is actually causing Chucky to become human the more time that he spends in this doll's body. So he decides that he wants to get out of that body while he can, and the only place that he can go is into the body of young Andy, the first person who he told that he was actually a human in a doll's body.
The main character is Chucky, played by Brad Dourif.
He's a great actor. He not only plays the living human version of Charles Lee Ray, but he also does the voice of Chucky when he's in the body. And it absolutely makes this film.
Definitely, this is like the most memorable thing about the movie is the Chucky doll and his voice.
Oh, I love his laugh.
Rewatching the movie, it's just, I'm kind of like waiting for him to start talking as himself. It's definitely like the best part of the movie, by far.
I would agree. I think that it's arguable that if Brad Dourif were not the one voicing Chucky, it is pretty unlikely that the film would have actually seen 6 sequels thereafter and a reboot.
Yes.
And an incoming television series. So, I mean, he really makes the film. This is not to say that the other actors aren't great, though. Catherine Hicks plays Karen Barkley, the mom.
You might know her also from Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home.
Or Seventh Heaven.
Seventh Heaven.
If you're into that kind of thing.
If you like that.
The son, Andy Barkley, is played by Alex Vincent, which I gotta say, you know, child actors, there's not really a whole lot you can expect, but I feel like he actually does a pretty good job.
So with child actors, they can either, I always feel like they're either like good or annoying. And
yes.
And I like with Andy, it's like I actually sympathized with him. He didn't come across as an annoying child character that I wanted to just like get out of the way. Especially as a 6-year-old, because that's a lot to expect from a 6-year-old. To show like joy and fear and show it convincingly. There's one scene in particular where he starts crying when he's being held, and it's kind of heart-wrenching watching him. Like, you really feel for him.
He's really very believable, you know, and I enjoy watching his performance, and it's also really interesting to see a young, small human playing off of a small doll. Like, it kind of adds a little bit to the comedy as well as the intensity of the movie. Another one of the main characters is Detective Mike Norris, played by Chris Sarandon. I really enjoy him in this movie a lot. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is with him. And that's actually when Chucky is trying to kill the detective while he's driving his car. So really quickly, Charles Lee Ray, when he's in his human form, is known as the Lakeshore Strangler. Now, something that I think is really amusing about this is Chucky does not successfully strangle anybody in this movie. He doesn't. He tries to get Chris Sarandon in the car. He starts, but maybe his tiny little body just can't quite get the job done. So when he can't strangle the detective, instead, he decides to try to stab him in the nuts.
So there's a scene where when he finds out he has to get his soul into Andy before his doll body becomes human, he says that
I have a date with a 6-year-old boy.
Creepy and not even remotely in the way that I want.
No.
No.
Crosses a line there, buddy.
Yeah. Something else about, you know, finding out that Chucky is turning human in the doll body, something I really enjoy about that is he grows eyebrows, like actual hair eyebrows. All of a sudden, the doll did not have hair eyebrows before they were painted on. At one point, Chucky is going after the detective, and in defense, the detective burns Chucky's face with a cigarette lighter, because, you know, they used to have them in cars, if you remember that, if you're old enough to remember that. And you actually see the mark on his face. The actual bullet wound that he gets in his shoulder from the altercation with the detective is what brings Chucky to find out that his body is in fact turning human, and he's not invulnerable as he had previously believed.
I think the filmmakers did a really good job with showing in the very beginning how, you know, he's exactly just like a doll. And as the movie progresses, he just starts getting human features just a little bit more. Like his face changes subtly. And it's not so much that he's unrecognizable towards the end. Like he still looks like a doll, but you can tell he's starting to look a little bit more human, a little less plastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They do a really good job with the special effects a lot in this movie as well. And some of that is also accomplished by minimalistic things. You see several things that are shot from Chucky's point of view. And I really appreciate that because not only is it creepy and kind of helps to build tension, but it also makes it so that they didn't have to try to use any special effects to show Chucky running, you know, or to show him ducking and bobbing and moving around. You know, they, for the time, again, in 1988, had very advanced animatronics and puppeteering that they were using, you know, and had actors who would also substitute for Chucky at certain times for specific movements and combat. But I think that having the POV shots really lends a lot to the film in terms of making it creepy and also not having to try to do anything that would not have come across well as far as, you know, computer graphics at that time.
There's some really good shots of Chucky as he's moving around. And like one especially when he goes to the hospital and he walks up to Andy while Andy's in bed. And it's just this one long take where you just see him walk from one side of the room to the other. And it just looks really natural. Like just the way he moves, like he looks like he's moving around like a doll. He doesn't look like just like an actor in a suit. There are a couple of shots, especially when Andy's looking out the window across the street, where it really does look like an actor. And I think it's just because they shot it from so far away.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, like maybe they just didn't direct the actor to like move more robotically or anything. Yeah, those kind of shots are like so few and far between. Like for the most part, he looks really good. His facial movements too. He's really expressive, and you know, like going from the doll persona to his actual, like what he actually is, serial killer. Just the transition that they have him make like looks really good.
Absolutely. That's really another one of my very favorite moments in the film. The one that I look forward to the most whenever I watch it is whenever Mrs. Barclay is at home, you know, her son has been committed and she's trying desperately to get the doll to talk to her, even though she still doesn't really believe that it will happen. But then she looks at the box that the doll came in and the batteries fall out of it. So she sees the batteries and she looks at Chucky's back and realizes, as she says in the film,
he's been moving and talking for days without any batteries in him.
At that point, she threatens to throw Chucky into the fire.
I said talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
And at that moment, Chucky comes alive in her hands, kicking and thrashing and screaming and calling her a stupid bitch. And it is so frightening and so exciting and so totally worth the payoff of how much movie happens without you actually getting to see Chucky alive and evil.
I have to say, too, that Catherine Hicks, she does a really good job just playing this mom who, she's not wealthy. You know, she's working this menial job with a crappy boss and, you know, trying to take care of her son all alone. We assume the dad is dead. Do they ever say he's dead?
They do say that the dad has died.
Yeah. So, you know, it's like you already feel for her because of that. I like how they show how she cares about Andy before all the horror starts, because it really makes you sympathize with both her and Andy, which can be really rare in horror movies. Because sometimes, or a lot of times I would say in horror movies, they don't really focus on the characters at all before the horror starts happening. So at least for me, it's hard for me to care about what's happening. But this movie does a really good job of setting up the characters before all the bad stuff starts happening. So you're actually invested in the story and you're invested in the characters.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I want to talk about a few of the things in the film that are maybe kind of weird. And again, this is one of my favorite horror movies because it's so much fun. But there's some strange things that happen in it. So if you'll recall, early on in the film, Andy is preparing breakfast on his birthday, and it seems that he is watching a cartoon with the good guys. Now you get like this maybe 5-second snippet of it before you're seeing what is obviously a person dressed in a good guy's costume, shilling the dolls, essentially, you know, trying to sell them and market them to kids.
Which I have to say is more horrifying than Chucky itself.
It's super freaky. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. Yikes. But what's weird about it is I'm not actually sure if this is a full cartoon. This same snippet is played again in the third Chucky film, but outside of that, across all 7 films, it's never actually made explicitly clear if this is an animated series for children to watch, or if it really is just a doll that's being marketed with an animated cartoon, which also seems to have this adult in a costume, and they're in a clubhouse or a treehouse or something. It's really weird. I've seen this movie 1,000 times. I don't know what the hell to make of this.
So I think I know what to make of this. When I was growing up, I used to watch Super Mario Brothers cartoon. That was a video game which had a cartoon tie-in, and they had live action actors who played Mario and Luigi on top of that. So I kind of see it as that, where they're trying to cross merchandise this toy with this cartoon, because it is the 80s. You know, like that's what they did. They're trying to like satirize that a bit. Then you have like the live action portions, because usually these cartoons were made on the cheap.
Right.
So they didn't want to animate for the full half hour. So they would have live action parts to save money.
That makes sense.
And so I kind of saw it as that.
I like this idea. Yeah.
But
okay, I can get down with that.
I find it impressive that they did actually make a cartoon specifically for this movie.
This one 5-second snippet.
Yeah. And in that same scene, they show the good guy's cereal on top of that.
Yes.
So that corporation is really trying to get that synergy going on.
I mean, Andy is outfitted as fuck with this good guy stuff. He's got the cereal. He's got the pajamas, which is what coincidentally leads the detective to think that Andy is the killer from the beginning because of his little good guy footprints on the counter that are also Chucky's footprints.
Yes.
You know, he's got all of these different little sets before he finally gets the coveted good guy doll. One last thing that's really weird about all of the things that Andy owns that are good guy, he also has the same haircut as Chucky. Ew.
That's weird. I never noticed that before.
Very weird.
Huh.
Very obsessive. I mean, not that I understand anything at all about being obsessive about a franchise. Anyway.
I also thought the pacing was really good. Pretty much all the scenes in the movie, I felt like had a purpose to them, or they just weren't showing nonsense. Like everything felt like it was setting up something later in the movie.
Totally.
Or it was a reaction to what was set up. I appreciated that they had a good structure to the story. The first part is where, you know, it's just getting to know the Barkleys, getting to know their lives. Once Chucky reveals himself, then that's like a whole other section of the movie. And then once everyone finally figures out what's going on, and then that's a section of the movie. Also, when Chucky finds out he has to transfer his soul into Andy, then everything switches gears. Weirdly enough, it's a very character-based horror movie.
It is, I agree.
And I don't think a lot of people realize that, because it's all based on like what Andy wants. Like his mom wants to make Andy happy. Chucky wants to keep on killing, wants to keep on living. Everybody has like a motivation in the movie.
Absolutely.
It really keeps you invested.
I agree. Yeah. I don't feel like there's any, as Detective Mike Norris would say, I don't feel like there's any loose ends.
I hate loose ends.
And I hate people who don't know when to stop.
I thought the detective was kind of bland myself. I don't want the characters. One thing I didn't like about Detective Norris is when he first shows up in the house, this woman is dead. This mom comes back home. He's just a dick to her. He's not kind. And he's just like, oh, what are these footprints on the counter? And oh, who would make those footprints and blah, blah, blah. He's accusing a 6-year-old of killing Maggie? It's like, why? That makes no sense.
I gotta say, in a certain way, I appreciate it because I feel like they show the rest of the Chicago cops literally just hanging out and watching TV in their house.
Yeah.
Like, why the hell did nobody call Mrs. Barkley? It seemed like she just thought she was going home and everything was fine and dandy. So what's up with that?
I guess for me, it's just kind of jarring because he acts like that. And then later on, when the mom finally figures out that Chucky is possessed, she goes straight to the Detective Norris. And I always thought that was kind of weird because they didn't set up him being empathetic towards her at all. And then, so she just goes straight to him, expecting him to believe that, hey, I have a possessed doll. It's like, oh God, this lady's crazy.
Yeah, he's definitely not buying it. And I kind of appreciate his response to that, too.
Yeah. Which, like, his response is totally legitimate. Like, I get that. I just thought it was very strange for her to go to him about that. Like, I guess that's my one major nitpick of the movie, rewatching it. I know the real reason it was to further the plot. But, like, character-wise, like, that part didn't make too much sense to me.
I mean, I guess when a killer doll bites you, you just don't know who else to go to.
Yeah. First Chucky movie I ever saw was Bride of Chucky.
That was the first one? I had no idea.
Yeah, back in, like, late 90s, early 2000s, whatever.
1998.
That's when it came out. I don't remember exactly when I saw it. So I saw that one. My second one was Seed of Chucky. So
we're not going to say anything else about that one.
So basically, I always figured the Chucky movies were comedies. I didn't see Child's Play until a few years after that, probably like mid to late 2000s. I was surprised that it was actually a good movie, like a good horror movie. And it has humorous elements.
Totally.
Ugly doll. Fuck you.
It definitely has like a little bit of the satire of like the good guys cross merchandising. I was surprised watching it. I'm like, this is actually kind of a good movie with like characters I can relate to. And it's not just like, oh, we're being jokey, haha, like Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah, they gotta work up to that.
Yeah, they gotta work up to that. It was a pleasant surprise when I first saw it. Rewatching it after that, I found new things to appreciate about it.
Awesome. I really dig this movie. I think that if you enjoy something that has good filmmaking, good acting, and, generally a good buildup of suspense and plot, that you'll enjoy this. I think it's pretty good. So since we liked this movie so much, we're obviously going to have to review the 2019 reboot of Child's Play starring Mark Hamill as Chucky.
Reboot? Remake? It's more of a remake.
What's the difference between a reboot and a remake?